Welcome to this second part of the presentation on the Government of Kenya Hustler Fund. In this presentation, we will answer the third and the fourth questions. The third question was, who qualifies for the Hustler Fund? And the fourth question was, why is the Hustler Fund a good idea for you? We will quickly address the third question because it is fairly straightforward and actually very simple. Every Kenyan citizen who is 18 years and older with a national identity card and a mobile phone wallet like M-Pesa qualifies to borrow from the Hustler Fund. The fourth question is, why is the Hustler Fund a good idea for you? And why should you be careful in making sure that you manage your account with the Hustler Fund very carefully? To answer this question, we will compare the cost of borrowing from 4 credit providers or loan providers that are out there. These are the 4 alternatives that a hustler borrower would have. So the first is a normal bank, or what we would call a conventional bank. The second one is a digital money lender. The third is the shillings. A shilling is a non-licensed or an unlicensed credit provider, and they are not licensed to provide loans, but they provide them anyway, and the hustlers of today are struggling borrowing from there. So we will look at that option as well. And then finally, of course, the Hustler Fund. So let us use a calculator that the Kenya Bankers Association subscribes to from the costofcredit.co.ke. As you can see right here, let us assume that our hustler would borrow or would have borrowed from a microfinance institution, because that is likely where he would borrow from. And then let us select any one of the banks in that list, say that bank, and the loan type that would be equivalent to the Hustler Fund would be an unsecured loan, so we would take that option. Let us assume a borrowing level of 50,000 Kenya shillings, and the closest to our ability to borrow every day with the Hustler Fund is a monthly borrowing loan period. Let us assume the borrowing is for the whole year. So what would be the estimated cost of borrowing from a conventional microcredit provider? So if you are to borrow 50,000 Kenyan shillings, you would pay back the amount at an interest of 20.53%, whose value is equivalent to 5,733. And in addition to that interest payment, you will pay or have paid bank charges of 1,500 perhaps. These are charges to initial the loan, plus an additional external charge of third party. This could be legal costs of 600 shillings, adding up to a total charges of 2,100. So if you add it up with the interest charge of the 5,733, the cost of borrowing from the traditional bank microfinance institution would have been 7,833 shillings, assuming that you borrowed 50,000 shillings. So when you add the interest the interest charge plus the additional charges, the effective interest rate, which is actually called the annual percentage rate, would be 28.92% rather than the 20.53%. So next, let us look at digital money lender. With the digital money lender, we know from officials of the Hustler Fund during the launch that they indicated that the average digital money lender interest rate is 1% per day. So that would add up to 365% per annum. So if we assume that from the digital lender, we are borrowing the same 50,000 shillings, and we are paying over the whole year as we did with the same assumption that we made earlier. So what would be the cost of borrowing this 50,000 per annum? What would be the cost per annum of borrowing an effective 50,000 shillings from a digital lender? You can see that effectively, if you borrowed 50,000 shillings from a digital lender continuously for the whole year, effectively, even if you are borrowing every morning 50,000 and returning 50,000 in the evening at the end of every day, so that would be effectively as good as borrowing 50,000 for the whole year and paying it over 12 months. And that would cost you at that rate of 1% per day, which is equivalent to 365% per annum. It would cost you would have to pay back a total of 190,363, and effectively the interest would have been 140,365. So let us now consider an actual story that was reported in the Daily Nation of the 9th of December 2022. On page 12, we read the story of Mr. John Otieno. Mr. John Otieno from the neighborhood, from the neighborhood of Manyata, in a neighborhood in Kisumu City. Mr. Otieno in that article tells us that he borrows on a daily basis for his border business to fuel his border. Every morning he borrows 500 shillings, and at the end of every day he returns the 500 plus an additional 75 shillings. So let us calculate for Mr. Otieno, if he is paying back every day, he is paying back 75 shillings, having borrowed 500 shillings. So what is the effective interest rate per day? That would be 0.15, and in percentage terms, you multiply by 100 to get the daily interest rate in percentage terms. So Mr. Otieno is effectively paying for 15% per day. That is 75 shillings for every 500 that he borrows and returns in the evening. He has got to return 75 shillings, which is equivalent to 15% interest on a daily basis. So for the whole year, assuming Mr. Otieno works for all the 365 days, is the interest rate on the effective 500 that he borrows for the whole year. That means that if he is borrowing every day for the whole year, every day he borrows in the morning 500 shillings, and in the evening he returns the 500 shillings plus 75. That would be the effective interest rate on the 500 shillings that he borrows for the year. So that is so let us calculate how much the cost of the money that you would have borrowed. That is the 500 shillings with at an interest rate of 5,475, assuming he borrows for the whole year. Then what is the cost of just borrowing 500 shillings, which is effectively like borrowing 500 shillings from the Shylock for the whole year? What is the cost? And you can see that Mr. Otieno is paying paying back a total of 27,375 in a year for just staying on a daily basis, being given 500 shillings in the morning, and he returns it in the afternoon with the additional 75 shillings. So he would pay back a total of, in the whole year, he would pay back a total of 27,375, which effectively implying that the interest would be 26,875. The impact of the cost of borrowing to Mr. Otieno may not be easily appreciated because of the level of borrowing. He borrows a little 500 shillings every day. So for us to fully understand how serious this is, let us compare like with like. With the same numbers that we had before, assume Mr. Otieno is borrowing 500 shillings 50,000 shillings every morning, and returning the 50,000 every evening with the additional 75 shillings for every 500 that he borrowed. At the same interest rate that we indicated for the whole year, what would Mr. Otieno effectively be paying back theoretically? What would he be paying back for borrowing 50,000 shillings? You can see how serious it is. If Mr. Otieno were to borrow from the Shylock 50,000 shillings every morning and return 50,000 shillings every evening, and with the 75 shillings for every 500 shillings, he would at the end of the year, he would have paid back 2,737,500 shillings. And because he borrowed 50, he would effectively have borrowed only 50,000 for the whole year. The effective interest would be a staggering 2,687,500. You can see how serious and how costly this kind of borrowing is, and why it would be very difficult for Mr. John Otieno to escape his place in society to a higher level, or to the next level in the economic pyramid. Let us now look at the Hustler Fund. Why? And so that we will fully understand why the Hustler Fund is so important. If effectively Mr. Otieno can borrow from the Hustler Fund every morning, it's as if actually this Hustler Fund was designed for Mr. Otieno, because the minimum you can borrow with the Hustler Fund in the personal finance product is 500 shillings, and that's what most people qualify at the beginning. So Mr. Otieno would be able to borrow 500 shillings every day and pay it back in the evening. So let us see, at an interest of 8% per annum, what would he have paid back by the end of the year? And you can see that he would pay back practically the same amount. You will see that our calculator is a little bit slow. He would have paid back for the 500 shillings on a daily basis, every morning, every evening. It would only cost him 22 shillings. Wow, what a product! Just to appreciate, if you were to build his credit score or credit worthiness, so that you will now be able to borrow the maximum of 50,000 how much would he pay back by the end of the year? See, it would only cost him 2,193 shillings to be able to borrow every. In fact, it's no with the personal finance product, you don't have to return it every day. You return it every 14 days. You return it every 14 days, and you will be able to borrow 50,000 shillings, and within the window of every 14 days, if he returns it and keeps his record, it will only cost him 2,193 shillings, rather than the 2,600,000 and over that we just talked about. What a wonderful product this is. Let us be careful about keeping our records, and the sky is the limit with this product. This is one of the most brilliant loan programs that I've ever seen in my life.